Okay, and we are live. Welcome to a new episode of All Things Xbox Podcast. Once again, I've got Logan with me. Logan, how you doing this week?
I'm doing pretty good, Jamie. It's been a good day in the neighborhood, and I'm excited for Tokyo Game Show on Thursday. And Sony just had a show that's wrapping up, and they had a few good announcements for multi-platform. So good stuff all around. How about you?
It's been a good week for gaming. I've been playing all sorts, which we'll get into in a second. I think it's actually been a really good week for game news because TGS is around the corner. There's all these game leaks that's been happening and stuff that's been happening with the state of play. And there's a bunch of games that's been announced there, which is also coming to Xbox, which we'll get into in a little bit. Which is kind of funny because I was going to wait till the show finished before we went live, but I'm actually looking at it right now, and it looks like they're closing out the show. They're showing off some hardware like special edition controllers and whatnot. But other than that, it's been a good week. While people are coming into the show, Logan, what have you been playing this week?
I've been Space Marine 2 and Power Wash Sim. And man, Space Marine 2, it keeps getting better and better. I think I'm towards the end of the game for the campaign right now, and I'm absolutely loving it. It's currently my game of the year right now, and it's just we've talked ad nauseum about it, but I love the game so much. There is one complaint I do have, and it's not something I would ding it on a score or anything, but to me, there's got to be a better way to where you can do operations mode offline or with bots instead of having to squad up all the time. Like basically, like I put out a thing the other day about it, and I had some people reply that yeah, you can play without bot. I mean, with bots, and I said sure. Okay, awesome. How do you do that? And they said, well, we don't really know. It just if no one joins your party, you play with bots. Like that doesn't seem like a good system to me to make it to where it's on a whim if you play with bots or not. Like you should be able to have the choice. And like that is literally my only complaint with the game. I absolutely adore it. It's doing well and we'll hop more into that later, but absolutely love Space Marine 2.
Yeah, Space Marine 2. I've been playing. I am taking my time with that game. It's a beautiful game. The action is great. When I get a game like that, I try and savor it. So like I do stretch out how long I play it over. I have not played the operations yet, but it looks fantastic. I will say this though, it is nice to have a game like that. Just it's raw gameplay. It's all about fun, and that's it. And it's like this weird, like testosterone filled action game. And we don't get many of those now, and I absolutely love it. We're going to be talking about Space Marine 2 in a bit because we have some news. The other games I've been playing is I've been playing, and we're actually going to include a review in next week's episode for a game called, oh my god, I've actually forgotten its name. um,
That's a good name.
yeah, uh, you know what? We'll just talk about that next week when I've actually got the gameplay ready. But I've been playing Fallout 4. That game is nuts. I don't get the criticism against it outside of like the dialogue stuff. It does seem a bit easy that I can get past any conversation without even trying. But I really don't care at the same time. It's a fantastic game, and as someone that put probably hundreds, if not thousands, of hours into Fallout 3, it is nice to have a wasteland that isn't just completely grey. You know, because that whole map in 3, it's the same color, the whole damn map. But Fallout 4, it's very colorful, and I really like that. And I also like that the third person controls are actually really good because the third person controls in Bethesda games are traditionally terrible. It's kind of floaty. If you go back to Elder Scrolls Oblivion and Elder Scrolls, Skyrim, but with Fallout 4, it plays really well. Obviously you can tell when you play like not Skyrim, Starfield, like the shooting controls, combat, all great, which I love. Oh, it actually does look like they are going to announce Ghost of Tsushima 2 on State of Play. Looks like that's what they're closing the shot with. Anyway, I've been playing Fallout 4. Great game. I've also been playing Star Trucker. I mean, that's a weirdly relaxing game. Some people have messaged me saying like the game is hard to get into because of it being basically a sim game. The truth is, like, that game can be brutally difficult. That's why when you start the game, you want to go into the custom difficulty setting and just mess around with all the different settings and make the game as easy or as difficult. I'm playing the game very, very casually. I want to relax when I'm transporting cargo across space. I don't want to worry about my spaceship blowing up every 5 seconds. So, to me, it's just going to be a relaxing game, and that can be it for a lot of people. And, it has an in-game radio, which I like, has a bunch of different, radio stations. The music options are very limited. I think there may only be like 10 songs on the radio. Fortunately, on Xbox, I don't know if you can do the same on PlayStation, but on Xbox, you can turn on Spotify. So you've basically got your own radio there. But it's a fun game. Highly recommend it. It launched in Game Pass. And what can I say? It's very different. And I have noticed over the past few years that there's a very unique sci-fi game launching in Game Pass almost every year. In 2022, it was Hard Space Shipbreaker, which I've talked about on this channel probably 20 times. Last year we got Everspace 2, which is a starfighter pilot RPG. And then this year we get this, Star Trucker. And it's a fun game. Highly recommend it. It's great. What can I say? You know what? People are still coming into the show, and, unfortunately, State of Play is still playing, and it looks like it's finishing now. You know what? Let's quickly talk about New World Aeternum. Now, Logan, did you get to play the beta at all?
I did not get to play the beta, but from everything I saw and I've heard about it, it looks awesome. And I actually picked up the Steelbook on Amazon. It's on sale for like $10, and it's really cool, and it comes with a map and everything. So if you're interested in it, check it out. But no, I haven't played the beta. How about you?
Yeah, so I managed to play, I want to say maybe 8 hours of the beta. It might be close to that. I didn't want to play it too much because sometimes you can get kind of bored, like if replaying the same opening section when a game releases. By the way, bit of a tangent. That's what I did with Watch Dogs. Not Watch Dogs, The Division back in the day. I was part of the closed alpha, the open alpha, the closed beta, the open beta, and then when the game released, I was like, I can't do this anymore. I can't do it. Like, I played the same opening section of that game 5 times. And like that's why I never got into the Division, despite the fact it was one of my most anticipated titles. like that opening few hours, my god, absolute bore fest. Just because of the amount of times I played it, but it is what it is. Well, anyway, New World Aeternum is bloody fantastic. I think people that have found MMOs very difficult to get into are going to love this. I didn't do any of the multiplayer stuff. I was basically going around doing quests by myself. I didn't do the PvP stuff. And I basically just played like an action RPG. Wandering around, doing quests. It's good. And I know that on PC, people are waiting for more content. But like at launch, you're getting a full game for a price. There's no subscription. And, it's not free to play. It's not riddled with microtransactions. And you're just good to go. And what can I say? Like, MMOs have this tendency to feel a bit floaty and not feel good on a controller. But this feels like an action RPG made for controller. So, like, whether you're using a sword or a musket, it plays really well. Really well. And I think that for people that are looking for something different, this is good. I honestly think this is going to be a big hit on console. Really big hit. Because it just plays so good. They have an interesting universe with an interesting story. You can tell they've changed things up since the PC version launched to make it more accessible for console users. So it's more cinematic when you do dialogue options, and there's more cutscenes in the game. It doesn't feel like an MMO. It's strange. It feels like you're playing a random action RPG that just happens to have other players running around. and I think that's going to be a big aspect that people really like. It's got a huge open world with tons of different biomes, and like Logan, in the past, I'm guessing you've tried to get in MMOs before, but you've found them off-putting.
Yeah, I'm just not an MMO guy, just point blank. It's just they're too. They feel just very just. I don't even know what the right term is. Floaty, I think, is a good word that you had mentioned kind of earlier,
Yeah,
and just they are just. I don't know. I like the idea of being able to play an RPG co-op if I want to, but I also like the idea of being able to do play it solo without it feeling like there's other things tethered to things beyond my control, or like where it becomes almost like a job to manage this MMO,
yeah,
or the idea of a subscription and some of this other stuff. So the idea of what they're doing with Aeternum, of making it where this is basically a solo RPG with 100-player co-op if you so choose. With a you buy the game up front, you own it, it's yours, you can play it, do what you want, and that's it, instead of a subscription fee. That's music to my ears, and I will treat it like an action RPG instead of an MMO personally.
yeah. Like I said, I think that's going to be the biggest thing for this game. It doesn't feel like an MMO. You know, it's nice having other people wandering around. It does make the world feel more alive, but even just from like a simple gameplay perspective, it doesn't play like an MMO. So like the combat mechanics kind of has traditional action RPG combat, be it melee or ranged combat with flintlocks, muskets, all that stuff. There is magic in the game, but I wasn't able to get to that part yet. Um, but like there's the fishing mini game, which is simple but actually fun. The fact that all the crafting locations located in the exact same spot in the city. So if you've played things like Skyrim or basically any other RPG, if you want to craft, let's say, leather armor or make a sword, the chances are you have to make those two different things in two different separate areas in the city. In this, all of those like crafting locations are in the same spot. So you only have to walk like a few feet. So let's say you want to craft a sword or make better armor. You don't really have to go far, and it's got an easy crafting mechanic. It literally just says, "Hey, collect 4 pieces of leather. You can make this now." It's it's very concentrated, and I've never really played a game like it. I've tried to get into MMOs on consoles for years. Elder Scrolls Online, I think that's actually one of the best ones because it basically is Skyrim too, but there's other players running around. It's just that game is a big time sink. And Final Fantasy 14. Unfortunately, I haven't had time for it because that game requires a lot of time. So I've been looking for a more casual thing I can play for like 30-minute intervals, and it looks like this is going to be one of those games. So people are going to be able to play this game how they want. There's going to be people that play this game only to forge swords to sell them to people, and it's got a really cool system like that. So if people are looking for an MMO that maybe is slightly different, maybe it's more aimed at console players, it comes out in October. It's fantastic, and in the UK, I think it's going to be $44.99, and in the US, I think it's going to be around $59.99, I believe. But hey, great game, highly recommend it. And like I put it like this: when the beta finished, I was actually kind of sad because I wanted to play more, and that's always a good sign. I think betas can get people burnt out very easily, and that is New World Aeternum. Launches on Xbox October 15th. Hell of a game, and it's also got a deluxe edition with like some pre-order stuff, but I never really bother with that kind of stuff. Now we're about 10 minutes into the show. Again, we started late because of the whole state of play thing, so YouTube's notification system, not entirely the best. So if you're enjoying it, please share it and like. Likes do actually help because of the algorithm and all that stuff, and I hate doing these little ads. If you want to support the channel with super chats, all that stuff is appreciated. Speaking of super chats, we have the first super chat of the day by Nick W. Thank you very much for the $9.99. He says, PS State of Play was pretty solid. I'm very excited for Legacy of Kain Remastered and Luna Remastered, plus a few others. Honestly, you know what? We'll roll straight into the whole, what do you call it? State of play stuff. Honestly, people might think, I'm going to tear it a new one because it didn't have some big first party games or like a lot of them. Honestly, I thought it was a good show. I thought it was a fun show, and there's nothing really bad I can say about it. It had a bunch of games I've been interested in for a while, and I thought it was a solid showcase or a solid state of play. Now, I'll quickly run down a few of the games which were shown there. Legacy of Kain, Soul Reaver. What can I say? That game is going to be phenomenal, and we'll talk about that in a minute. There's another game that was announced. This game was actually announced a while ago, called The Midnight Walk. It's got a stop motion style to it, and by the way, I love stop motion. I think it's a lost art form, and I think in video games it really works. Like, it works really well, but not many games do it. Which that looks fairly cool. It's going to be a first-person shooter type game, but it's also got VR support. There's also a third-person game, which actually got announced for Xbox about 2 years ago. It is coming to Xbox. It's called Hell Is Us. It's a third-person, over-the-shoulder action-adventure game with light Souls-like elements, and it's set in a mystical world. Got some gothic vibes to it. Let's see. The next game is called Arcade, which is a fantasy RPG. Looks pretty fun. The next game is Fantasian Neo Dimension. That's another game by Mistwalker. So this is going to be a 3 for 3 Mistwalker games on Xbox. Lost Odyssey, Blue Dragon, and now Fantasian. And I can't wait for this game. I think that Mistwalker has this thing for like making lead characters in video games that loses the memory, and I'm all for that trope. I think it's a cool trope. I think the game looks fantastic.
Maybe they forget they're doing it.
I mean that's true. They could be, but it looks fantastic. And that game was actually on Apple Arcade for, I want to say, 3 years. And for people that don't know, games are locked to Apple Arcade, meaning that if a game's in the service, you can't buy them at all. The only way to play those games is by subscribing to the service, which I think is a bit of a weird tactic they do, which people in the industry don't really talk about much. But we'll complain about Game Pass on a daily basis, but not Apple Arcade. But anyway, that game looks fantastic. Comes out this December. There's also Sonic X Shadow Generations, which is a remaster of Sonic Generations, but it's also got a built-in expansion featuring Shadow the Hedgehog and a whole new chapter. The way they worded it, it sounds like Keanu Reeves is also voicing Shadow in the game. They weren't really clear about that. I don't know if they were just referencing the movie, but either way, it looks super cool, and if you're a fan of Sonic, this is going to be one to get. Next up, they showed Dragon Age the Veilguard. Now, I've been a bit weird with this gameplay because I don't like the UI. I think the gameplay looks fantastic for Dragon Age. It's going back to it's more action focused, yet it's mission based, and I love mission based RPGs. But honestly, I thought the combat looked really good, really good. Next up, they showed off Alan Wake 2 DLC. People have been waiting for this for a long time. Releases this year. What can I say? I think Alan Wake 2 is phenomenal. It's probably one of the best games I've played in a long time. And the expansions, it looks like they're not stopping with that anytime soon. I think Remedy are one of the best developers in the industry, but for some reason their games just don't sell. Thankfully, people on Steam will be able to buy that game fairly soon, because it's been locked to the Epic Store on PC for almost a year now, so hopefully that's going to change soon. Next up, we got Legacy of Kain, which I've just mentioned. There's a game I know Logan will like. Fear the Spotlight. It's a PlayStation 1 style horror game, which looked really good. They showed off some controllers. There was the Horizon Forbidden West or Horizon Zero Dawn remaster, the Lego game. And I caught the end of a Ghost of Tsushima sequel. I'm going to butcher that name every time I say it. I apologize. But honestly, good show. It was a good show, and there's plenty of things I'm looking forward to. Logan, what do you think? Because honestly, I thought it was pretty decent.
I liked the show. Like, it might not be the most popular opinion, but I honestly thought it was a good show. But of course, I'm going in as somebody who is excited to see games on multiple platforms, or if it comes to Sony exclusively, okay. But I think if you were strictly in the Sony camp and you wanted something that really sold a PS5 Pro, or was like really why you should pick PlayStation over another platform, this was not the showcase for you. This was just a this felt like a indie showcase with a few first party things sprinkled in, is basically what it felt like. But I enjoyed the announcements. I'm still trying to see if that Lunar Remastered collection is coming to Xbox. So far, I only see PlayStation 4 and 5, but that would be cool if it comes to Xbox. Maybe they're saving that for the Xbox show in a couple days. The Fear the Spotlight, which is was announced originally in the Bloomhouse. For those who don't know, Bloomhouse is a publisher of horror movies, and they do really cool art house style stuff. And they announced that they're making games now at the Game Awards with Keeley last year or earlier this year. That his one of his events, and this was one of the titles revealed. So it getting an October release date is good for me. Makes perfect sense. I'm looking forward to that one. Alan Wake 2, of course, day one. I can't wait. And we're going back to the lake house now, which should be especially creepy and terrifying and just an absolute mind trip. And yeah, obviously the Legacy of Kain uh, collection is a big deal. I've been waiting to play Soul Reaver 1 and 2 for a long, long time. I never played them originally, so this is my first chance to play them. So I'm very excited to see what all the hype's about. And vampires with cool powers and gothic worlds and stuff. Count me in. And yeah, there were several other really good announcements. Like obviously, I will make jokes about the completely unnecessary cash grab of Horizon Zero Dawn remaster. At least the upgrade's only $10 if you own it, the PS4 version. But still, like we talked about it before the show, I'm kind of agree with Night Dive that a game should be 10 plus years old before you seriously consider doing a remaster remake, unless there are extenuating circumstances like tech leaps or things available now that they couldn't have done before to fix things or whatever. To where I'm getting really sick and tired of Sony's act about that. Just point blank. And then the Ghost sequel will be really good. I am curious to see how well a female protagonist does with some audiences. To me, it's obviously not a big deal at all. Cool protagonist, cool protagonist. Count me in. But I know some people are odd about that sort of thing. So we'll be curious to see how that affects that game. Lego Horizon Zero, that'll be fun. Hell is Us looks cool. I like Souls like games. Dragon Age is I don't know. My vibes on Dragon Age are not as high as they once were, just being honest. And Power World, while you're being sued by Nintendo, was a bold strategy. And Monster Hunter Worlds, more of that is good. So overall, I enjoyed the show, but to me, it wasn't a you gotta get a PlayStation Bro kind of show.
Yeah, I think this wasn't really like looking from the outside looking in. It didn't scream a show like, hey, this is why you need to buy a PlayStation 5 Pro. But really, it didn't need to be for me. I thought it was a pretty cool show. And honestly, when I have a showcase like that, or watch a showcase like that, and if I want to play most of the games, then that That's good. You know, something for everyone. And you know, I will say this though. So, Legacy of Kain remaster collection, uh, it leaked about 10 hours ago, and I did the thing I normally do. You know, saying this game's coming to Xbox, so I'm gonna buy it on Xbox because that's what I do. And you know, the amount of replies I got from people that just like completely disregarding everything I said, or disregarding anything I'm saying when it comes to the topic. And you know, some people just being rude and whatever. And people are saying, but Jamie, there's just PlayStation logos on the image. Nobody here has ever seen an Xbox logo on PlayStation, like, what, images, right? The images that leaked were from the PlayStation Network store. So you weren't going to see Xbox logos everywhere. This was a PlayStation logo scare, like, which I've seen people throw around today. Um, but like, uh, the
Yeah.
the reason why I'm so confident is that it is coming to Xbox is because the same thing happened with Tomb Raider. The Tomb Raider trilogy was literally announced on a Nintendo Direct, and then about 20 minutes passed after the show ended. Then the official YouTube channel for Aspire and their official Twitter account start putting out, you know, the trailer with the Xbox, PlayStation, and you know, PC logos at the end. I This happens all the time, by the way. You know, if a company has a marketing deal or if a game's been revealed or anything, you don't really see the other consoles' logos at all during their showcase. It's very rare that happens. And, like, I will eat a tiny hat made of cheese if, you know, it somehow does not come to Xbox. But people keep doing this association thing where people are thinking Legacy of Kain is a PlayStation franchise. It's like, no, it was on PlayStation, PC, and Dreamcast, right? People need to get out of the feelings and all that stuff because I don't know. It's just like people took that personal today when I said it was coming to Xbox. Like, we just have to wait for it to be announced officially, which is it's probably going to be announced in the next hour, depending on who's like still working at Aspire because I don't know where their main office is, but I think it's going to be fine. I've seen the trailer. That game looks damn good. I have a lot of nostalgia for Legacy of Kain. Legacy of Kain Soul Reaver is a phenomenal game. What they were doing back on the original PlayStation and Dreamcast and PC back then, like, it was great. Like, you never saw anything like that. It was like this instant world switching mechanic, and the game has this like gothic vibe to it, and you don't really have that in video games much now. It's a tone you don't get much, and I think games like Legacy of Kain we don't really get at all now. Um, I will say this: I do think Embracer are using these remasters to gauge interest in like future games. I've been saying this for a while. Like, it makes sense because Legacy of Kain's been a dead franchise for a long time, and then there was going to be a game in about 2012, I believe, and that game got cancelled due to the fact that Square Enix thought no one was going to buy it. So, and that game got pretty far through development as well. So there's a game just sitting on a server somewhere, which looked pretty good at the time. Um, but anyway, Legacy of Kain remaster for 1 and 2. I'm putting it out there. I think within the next hour it's going to be announced for Xbox, you know, Nintendo Switch and PC. Not the end of the world. Just people have to realize that they can't just announce these things straight away, you know? Like, Logan, you obviously saw the reaction online because, you know, just because there wasn't an Xbox logo there, people freaked out.
Yeah, I wasn't worried about it because Aspire has been pretty adamant that they will put their games that they remaster wherever possible. Like they even brought what was it, Bounty Hunter to Xbox after it had not been on Xbox before, period. It had only been on GameCube
Um,
and PS2.
Logan, I have to mention
Can you
this.
hear me?
Yeah, I just have to mention this quickly. It's officially announced for Xbox literally while you were talking.
Okay, good. Well, there you go. I
Yeah.
mean, you pop the champagne, the world will turn again.
Yeah.
And boys rejoice.
And now,
Oh,
I
can I finish?
yeah, you can finish.
Okay, sorry. But yeah, just like, well, it's officially confirmed now. So, like, I assume that anything Aspire does going forward is multi-plat unless specifically tied otherwise. So the only one I'm really concerned about is the Lunar Remastered
Yeah.
collection. But since it's the people who did the Grandia HD 1 and 2, and that came to Xbox, makes me think it will on the Xbox. But one thing that kind of slipped under the radar that not too many people are mentioning is everybody's favorite dormant Dino game, Dino Crisis, got added to Retro Classics for PlayStation. So if you have a PS5 and you want to, you can pick up Dino Crisis.
Yeah, Dino Crisis is a weird one because like Sega, I'm not Sega. I'm all over the place today. Capcom, over the years, they've been really interested in remastering or bringing every one of their old franchises back because, Capcom's been on a roll for several years now. And it's one of those games I've port begged beyond belief. I will take a remaster of the originals. I don't care. I want a remake in the RE engine. Anything Dino Crisis, I'll take it. And it's just a franchise they just haven't really touched. And I don't know why, because Resident Evil is basically going to be a bi-yearly franchise. Like there's one game basically
Hey,
every
can
other
I
year.
breaking news?
Yeah, yep.
Can I bump in just like you did with the the Kane announcement? It was just announced literally 2 minutes ago that the Lunar Remaster is coming to Xbox. So we don't have another logo scare for that one either.
Oh, that's
They're all
great.
coming.
Great news. And like I think those, if I remember correctly, those were Super Nintendo games, right?
It's Sega CD, I think.
Oh wow. Well, again, those are games I missed out on, and I'll be able to play them. So, breaking news during the show. Love to see it. But Dino Crisis, a lot of people want to come back. For people that don't know, Dino Crisis is basically Resident Evil, but you have dinosaurs instead of zombies, and it works. And that was like coming off the back of Jurassic Park, so like they were cashing in on that. Um, there's like articles you can read online about it, but they would basically use Jurassic Park as a marketing tool at the time because people were loving Jurassic Park. The merchandise was selling off the shelves constantly. I mean, Jurassic Park is still big to this day. But anyway, Capcom put out a survey recently asking what franchises do people want to be remastered or remade. They specifically mentioned remasters. And Capcom with Dead Rising, that's basically a remake. It's just they call it a remaster. And Dino Crisis was on that list. And I've had so many surveys by Capcom that have listed Dino Crisis. I do think it's actually going to happen. There's too much love for that franchise. All these years later, people have like so many fond memories of it, and even there was the third one on the original Xbox, which was a sci-fi action game. Like it was nothing like the first two. And by the way, I liked the third game. Like if you put spaceships in a video game with laser rifles, but you also happen to have T-Rexes in that game, I'm all over that. So like that was
Hey, it's
direct.
a 10-year-old's dream.
Yeah, basically, like I was in my element as a kid playing that, so like I loved it. But Dino Crisis, I think fans would love it to come back, and what they could do with like the RE engine, do an RE2 style game, like I'd be all over that in a heartbeat. Like, cannot wait. And I do think it'll happen. Capcom, it's in their best interest to release different games regularly. So one year you could have a Dino Crisis remake, and then the next year have, I don't know, Resident Evil Zero remake, which you have no idea how much I want. I love that game. Like the game set on a train shouldn't have worked, but it was so good. But yeah,
I love that game.
yeah, it's such an underrated Resident Evil game. I don't know why it doesn't get as much love as it deserves, but hey, I do think Dino Crisis stuff is going to happen. Now let's see where we are because my topics are all over the place. Oh, I want to have a bit of a. You know what? Um, let's go into the Space Marine 2 stuff. Space Marine 2 has been a colossal success, and I love to see it. I love the fact that we have this third-person linear sci-fi shooter that's doing really well, and it's done so well that it's completely changed how the studio is going to develop games going forward in a good way. Because their motto for this game has been make a game that's just fun to play, all about the action and the plot, and they did a really good job with it, and it sold so well because Focus Entertainment, they're my favorite publisher, but their games just don't sell that well. A lot of people look at their games as these double A games, and they kind of get overlooked, despite the fact that they make some of the best and most interesting games in the industry. Their games are so different and refreshing, and more people need to pay attention to them. Well, they've had so much success that they are actually looking into doing single player expansions for the campaign, and they're also looking into doing Space Marine 3. So, like, as soon as this game started reviewing well, immediately, I thought, okay, Space Marine's going to remain as an active sub franchise of Warhammer, and it looks like that's going to be the case. So Space Marine 2, it looks like we're going to see, because we already have a year one roadmap, but they've also said that they're going to add things into it when it comes to quality of life features. So that little image that's been going around of the roadmap, we're actually going to get more than that when it comes to features. But it looks like we're also going to get single player campaign expansions, and the fact that they all but confirmed a third game. Like, I haven't seen a single frame of the third game, but I'll say this: I'm there day one. Already sold. Logan, I know you're happy like I am. Space Marine fans, finally.
Oh yeah, I'm super excited. I'm tap dancing around the room. It is awesome news that like within 2 weeks of launch, they've already sold like 2 million plus. It's getting rave reviews. You have super fans like Henry Cavill coming out and being like, "This is amazing," and everybody respects his opinion on Warhammer because he's so into the lore and so in depth of that universe, and he's working on a show in that universe. And so you have hardcore super fans that are into it. You have casuals and people like me who had kind of some knowledge of it. Like, I'm like, okay, yeah, it's big dudes in armor with guns and they fight monsters in space. And I jump in and I'm like, this is amazing. And then it got me considering getting minifigs. And I'm not a minifig guy. And I'm like, I love this so much, I might want to get a little tank or some little Marines to paint because it's so cool. And the story is fantastic. The gameplay is phenomenal. Love the characters. And like in the interview they gave, they said we already announced all this content we were going to do, but the success has been so overwhelming and positive and so tremendous that we are significantly expanding in scope what we are going to bring to this game, which also includes we can be doing story DLC and potentially or a sequel, and it all but confirmed a sequel, but we might be getting either an expansion to tide things over or just jump straight to a sequel, but more is coming for this universe story wise, and I can't wait.
Yeah, I mean, there's always so much drama going on in the game industry and people reacting to news, but like this is a genuine, like, bloody good story because when Space Marine 1 first came out on 360, PS3, and PC back in, 2011? Something like that. 2011. Uh, it was received, pretty well. People were like, this is blatantly a Gears style game, but it just works. Fun game, excellent combat. It just didn't sell that well. So over time, it became this cult classic. And once a year, there's a Warhammer stream on that's strictly over video games. And the chat for about 10 years throughout the entire showcase every year has been Space Marine 2 question mark. And we get that trailer in 2021. I believe it was 2021, where we had literally 7 seconds of gameplay plus a CGI trailer, and people didn't believe that that 7 seconds of gameplay was real. Yet the game comes out, bloody flawless. Like the game, like there are some things that they can fix, which will be fixed, but like from a gameplay perspective, brilliant. Story, brilliant. Visuals, oh my lord! Like the game looks so good that when it goes from CGI cutscene to gameplay, it looks the same basically. You have hundreds of enemies on screen. We talk about all the time about what next gen, it's going to deliver when it comes to, video games. Is it going to be resolution or graphics? Like, no. This game's like, you're going to get a fancy resolution and you're going to get thousands of enemies on screen. And I love that. I absolutely love that because there's enemies that are basically like just running in the distance. And in most games, these would just be like basically background images that you can't interact with. But if you shoot at them, you get hit markers and they class as kills. So if you want to get that 41,000 kill achievement, good on you. It's going to take a while. But in this game, you probably could do that because literally you can just wipe out hundreds at a time. It's such a good game. I couldn't be happy for the studio. And like they coming out with a new game this month. Oh, well, next month as well. They have the Quiet Place game, which comes out next month. And then the next year, they also
Day one.
Yeah, day one looks fantastic. Looks like it's basically going to be Alien Isolation, but with a Quiet Place, and I love that franchise. All three films. And next year, they have Toxic Commando coming out, which is a first-person shooter that's set in a over-the-top 80s-inspired like action set-piece sort of thing. They're also using the Swarm engine where there's hundreds of enemies on screen. So basically, you're going to be driving a Jeep through hundreds of zombies. It doesn't make sense. And I think John Carpenter is something that's behind it.
I think George A. Romeo is
Yeah.
involved as well.
Yeah, it looks like a crazy game. But what can I say? I'm happy for the studio because Saber Interactive, they do solid games. They came out with World War Z, and that game still gets support. Still. And if I remember correctly, World War Z launched February 2019.
Yeah, it was pre-World Gone Crazy.
Yeah. and that game, like, it gets expansions all the time, free content, and now that game has over 25 million players. So if they can keep that up with Space Marine 2, I mean, I bet Games Workshop, the company behind Warhammer, they are so happy. They are so happy because people are buying the merchandise. I'm looking at figurines. Why? Like, I will say this: I've played a ton of Warhammer games over the years. I don't know why I've never gotten into the universe, but now I actually want to get the books and get into it. So, this was a gateway thing for me. Space Marine 2, if people haven't played it, just so good. Saber Interactive, honestly, probably one of the best developers in the industry. Really, and I do not like how IGN took one of their statements about the game. Like they set out, they just wanted to make a fun game, but IGN called it a controversial statement. It's like, no, some developers just want to make games that are fun. No pretentious story, no nothing. We've talked about this before. Twisters, the movie. They could have came out and made a film that was about, the environment and how we have to like save the world and stuff. And the director was like, no, it's going to be an action film that's fun. And they did a bloody good job with that. And it's the same with this game. So I love that. Great studio. And whatever expansion they come out with, I'm going to buy it. What can I say? Anyway, we'll move on. I want to get this out of the way quick because I'm annoyed. I want to have a little mini rant. And I'm going to rant about Splinter Cell. We are 11 years since Splinter Cell Blacklist. It's been a damn long time, and it pains me, right? Every single year, Ubisoft has their showcase, and what do you know? A random mobile game nobody's ever heard of gets, a Sam Fisher skin or something, or they put Sam Fisher in Fortnite, and I just die inside, and we just don't get anything Splinter Cell related. Well, anyway, Ubisoft, they having all sorts of issues at the minute with certain games, and I think a lot of that is forced online. I just want to put this out there to the world, and hopefully someone from Ubisoft listens. Um, we were shown a teaser trailer for the remake 3 years ago. It felt like a century ago. And we were told that it's going to be faithful to the original game. And we still have nothing. Zilch. Zip. Nothing. We have 4 pieces of concept art. And the reason why I'm worried is that if anyone has played the original Splinter Cell on the original Xbox, it's not a long game. It's not a big game. It's not open world. It's a linear stealth game. So I'm wondering, what the hell are they making? What is taking 3 or 4 years to remake a game that is linear? I don't know, Logan. I want to get that off my chest, but like, am I out of my marbles? Like, I know I'm triggering myself, but like Splinter Cell fans have been through the ringer, and we have nothing.
Yeah, it's a sick joke what is happening with the Splinter Cell franchise. Like, every time, you hear that little sound, like it sounds like it's booting up the headset, or you hear Ironside's voice, or you see his gear or the knife kill in the background or all that stuff, and then it ends up being like skins for a game or a cameo appearance or some weird collaboration tie-in mission to another franchise that just feels shoehorned in for reasons just so that they can keep the intellectual rights for the character or something. And it's ridiculous. It's been way too long, and I don't know if they're just scared to death of the franchise and don't want to disappoint everybody or what, but come on, just show something. Like something more than just a title card. A title card was good. That was a great first announcement. But buddy, that was a few years ago already at this point. So you gotta give us something. Like at least show him crawling in a vent. Like in the year 2024, surely you can show Sam Fisher crawling in a vent or dangling from the rafters or something.
Yeah, it's just sad, man. Like, I've over the years I've accepted that I'm not gonna get another linear Ghost Recon game. I've accepted that, right? We're gonna get Ghost Recon games with towers, where you unlock parts of the map. I've accepted that, right? I've accepted that, Mass Effect 4 is 5 years away, right? But this Splinter Cell stuff really annoys me. Like, because if you're a stealth fan, there's nothing to play, right? Nothing. Like, I'm replaying Metal Gear Solid, but I want a new Splinter Cell game, and I just feel like I can't say the words on the channel because YouTube. But we've been honey worded. And I'm just sick of saying skins all the time. The fact that we got those Ghost Recon missions with Splinter Cell stuff, like. Anyway, just wanted to do a mini rant because I'm annoyed. We'll continue. Still have a bunch of topics to go over. Pal World. Now, we have to talk about this because it's actually a big deal. So, Pal World has been in some legal trouble with Nintendo. And a lot of people start freaking out thinking, it's about some of the designs of the pals, the creatures. And it's not. It's actually patent infringements. So, Nintendo has these patents that, you have these people that love Nintendo, and I love Nintendo, right? If it wasn't for Nintendo, a lot of places wouldn't have gotten out of the game from the 80s when the original game crash happened. But like Nintendo, they are notoriously bad when it comes to this stuff. And one of the patents was for in a video game capturing creatures in a small device. Now, if this stuff goes through, it would literally affect basically any future in already existing creature hunting slash capturing game. So that's a big problem. Like we've talked about Nexome 1 on the channel before. And like that is basically a Pokemon style game. Nexomon 3 is going to be a 3D style Pokemon game. And like if this, goes through and Nintendo wins, it opens up Pandora's box to basically screwing over the entire genre for anyone other than Nintendo. So hopefully they lose. Hopefully Palworld can continue to grow because they have talked in the past that they want to make the game even bigger, potentially even put a story in. So I hope it fails. It just got announced for PlayStation. I honestly hope it does really well on PlayStation because I want that legal team that they have to have all the resources because they are good developers. They are a small team, and I think they've been put in a horrible situation because Nintendo, they clearly have good lawyers, clearly have amazing legal teams, but this is a detriment to future games in the monster capturing genre. Logan, I know you wanted to talk about this because it is a messed up situation.
Yeah, it is. It's a punk move, just straight up. It like no beating around the bush. It's a punk move. Like to wait till a game is already out and then announce file a patent for something that you introduced in gaming like 30 years ago with like Pokemon Red and Blue and stuff, like almost 30 years ago. And now you're filing a patent for ball capture for creatures and stuff like that. Like, you know, not to get all legalistic in terminology, but like at least in the United States legal system, I don't know about in Japan or other places. There's something called a statute of limitations where you have within a certain amount of time to file something or like file charges or sue or do something for damages or a crime you think was inflicted or whatever. And to me, like, this feels like, I don't know, it just feels really gross. And the fact that and at this point, if they won, what precedent does this set for the industry that you can go back and file a patent for something that old? Everybody knows they've had this mechanic for decades, literally. And there have been all these other countless games that use that kind of mechanic, and they haven't been sued into oblivion. Fan projects have been axed, but they've been Pokemon, like straight up Pokemon using the IP and stuff. Like, this is a different game that happens to use a device to capture things, but also does a whole bunch of other stuff. Like, imagine if Doom had trademarked and patented FPS, like first person shooting, and we could have never had another game where you shoot from that perspective. Or, like Prince of Persia, like on the Xbox and GameCube PS2, if they had patented wall running. Or, you know what I'm saying? Like, you get to a certain point to where it it's disingenuous and it stifles creativity. And like at the end of the day, like, all gaming borrows from each other. Like, you get inspiration from things you watch and play and read. Like, why do you think there's so many Star Wars references, or so many Lord of the Rings references, or The Thing, or Resident Evil, or some of these iconic franchises and IPs and things? Because people know them, they love them, they remember the mechanics or the experiences, and they reference them, but make them their own with a tweak or twist. If you make it where people can't even do that, then my goodness, we already make jokes about the industry being cooked creatively. So if you make it to where mechanics are being taken away, like, what's next? You can't walk, you can't double jump, you can't swim, you can't swing across a rope or tight rope across a cliff. Like, this is a very, very, very bad precedent. And I hope Pal World wins because I do not like the idea of what the future holds if Nintendo wins this one.
Yeah, it like you said, it's a bad precedent because like I think like when it comes to like gamers, like I love like if I like a game, I want other games like it. You know, I've been begging developers to make Mass Effect clones so I can purchase them, and like you would think that Pokemon fans would like more, variety, have more games out there because like Pokemon, like they own the market basically when it comes to creature capturing games, um, and like it doesn't really hurt them. And like if you look at Pal World is a survival game, right? You make buildings in that game. It's it's more in common with Minecraft than Pokemon, and blocking those like mechanics, it's just I don't know. I think Nintendo's gotten better over the years when it comes to like the copyright stuff. When it comes to like making content, but like when it comes to game development, like locking this type of stuff behind like patent infringements or whatever, it's messy. It's messy, and I hope that like maybe Microsoft and like Sony they back this studio because again, Nintendo will probably win if no one else bigger gets involved. Anyway, we'll move on. Damn, we still have a crap ton of topics left. You know what? Let's talk about the Batman thing. So, Nick from Xbox Era recently talked about how there's a new Batman game in development. Awesome news, and apparently it'll have some sort of exclusivity to PlayStation. He has been right a lot of times in the past, so it's not something to scoff at. However, I have an alternate theory, right? So, Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League, they basically finished development. It's getting like some content still. A bunch of developers from Rocksteady are now making Hogwarts Legacy content for the director's cut, which is meant to come out either next year or later this year. So, like, a new Batman Arkham game is years away. Like, years away to the point where I don't think they'll have made anything in regards to the game, not even concept art. So, like, we are looking at maybe 2030 for the next Arkham game. I shudder at the thought because that is years away. It sounds like a futuristic year from Blade Runner. I wouldn't worry. I wouldn't like Warner Brothers games. They have made some horrendously bad decisions in the past. However, they have learned. Hogwarts Legacy was a colossal success. It was a single player game without microtransactions, and that game is on everything. It's even on Switch, right? Batman Arkham games traditionally have sold really well on Xbox. So, like I said earlier today on Boomstick Show, like let's say the next Batman Arkham game was theoretically could sell 5 million copies on Xbox. That means Sony would have to fork out around $245 million minimum just to secure the rights to cover how much it would sell on Xbox, right? So, like, I wouldn't worry. If anything, I think maybe some information got mixed up and the VR game is going to be exclusive to PlayStation when it comes over to console because, the VR game, it's coming to Oculus at some point. I can't remember the date. And that is apparently a full VR Arkham game. And that kind of makes more sense to me. Logan, what do you think? Because, again, the new Arkham game is literally years away, and it's something people really don't have to worry about right now.
I think more Batman is always a good thing. I love Batman. Batman was my favorite superhero growing up, along with Spider-Man. I absolutely adored the cartoon, and Batman Beyond as well. Really wish they'd do something with that spinoff. And so the idea of a new game being done by Rocksteady with Batman is great, especially after the Squad game did not obviously do very well. And I'm not a VR guy, so I'm excited for a traditional Batman game. Like, power to the people who love VR. I can't do it. Makes me feel ill. But a traditional Batman game is great news.
Yeah, uh, like I think it coming out at some point in the future, it's great. Like I think that as much as it might seem weird, like Rocksteady, if they just come out with another Arkham game, it's obviously going to sell well. Like, did they take a risk with Suicide Squad? Yes. However, that came out at a time, or it was in development at a time where Fortnite was getting big, and all these other developers were rushing to make a game that could basically do the whole Battle Pass thing. And that's one of the reasons why apparently Suicide Squad was delayed for almost a year because they wanted to tone back the live service elements, allegedly. So like, I think Rocksteady just let them do their own thing, but I think the whole exclusivity rumor is unrealistic. It just feels too early for that stuff. And remember, people talk about monopolies all the time. Can you imagine if Sony they locked down Spider-Man, and they also have the DC games as well? It just doesn't make sense. It doesn't feel realistic to me. But again, this is something we'll have to worry about in 5-6 years, because again, these games take a long time to make, and it's going to be a while. This isn't going to be something we get a teaser for in 2 years. This is going to be something we get a teaser for in 5 years. Like, it is a long time away, unfortunately. And I would love, like, all they have to do really is just make another random Arkham game, set it after Arkham Origins, get the same voice actor, boom, 10 million copies. That's all they have to do. And obviously put it on everything. And by that point, they'll be able to put it on, the Switch 2, or who knows, maybe even a Switch 3 by then, which that is years away. Anyway, we'll move on. You know what? Let's talk about our TGS predictions, because the Tokyo Game Show is on the 26th. Depending on your time zone, it's going to be hard to watch. So in the UK, it's 11 a.m. I believe Eastern. In the US, it's 6 a.m. And the West Coast, I think it's going to be 3 a.m. or something. So if you're a night owl like me and you're up all night, if you live in the West Coast in the US, you could watch that live. But it looks like Xbox, they're going out the way to market this unlike anything I've seen before. Like, Microsoft's always, they market their Tokyo Game Shows a little bit. They never go all out. But they've talked about this non-stop. Constant ads. Literally every time I open Twitter, it's a Tokyo Game Show ad. And even Tom Warren from The Verge has came out and said, hey, you maybe want to pay attention to this show. Now, here's my predictions. I think Final Fantasy VII Remake, that isn't going to be on the show. It doesn't seem realistic with the whole thing they have with Sony and all that stuff. Like, I do think that is coming at some point. Maybe even a Tokyo Game Show 2025. By the way, I hate saying 2025. It sounds like years away, but it's only a few months. I do think Final Fantasy 16 and Pixel Remasters are going to be announced. My theory is, I think Pixel Remasters is going to shadow drop this week, and I think that Final Fantasy 16 launches on Xbox in October. The PC version is out. They're optimizing for that still. They're getting patches out. But it just seems like if you're marketing the PC version, it makes sense financially to use the same marketing money to get the console version out there for Xbox, right? So I do think Final Fantasy 16 is going to be coming. I do think we are going to see some Kingdom Hearts. Kingdom Hearts 3 and the collection are already on Xbox, so people can go out there and play it. I honestly loved Kingdom Hearts 3. I didn't like the spaceship stuff. I thought it was terrible. But the actual levels themselves, I thought was great. Logan, did you play the Kingdom Hearts games?
I played the original one, but I'd have to go back, and I've been meaning to go play through them all again. But I know they kind of went off the deep end at one point, and the story got incredibly convoluted and complicated in Kingdom Hearts 3.
Yeah, I know the story for Kingdom Hearts is all over the place. So, like, to get the story, you have to play Kingdom Hearts 1 and 2. Then you have to play a mobile game that launched in, 2011. Then you have to play a DS game upside down while you're on a bus. Then you have to play, like the remaster that was on PlayStation 4 because it has some hidden content. It's weird. Like, but apparently with Kingdom Hearts 4 they are going to make it more accessible story wise because let me tell you, uh, Kingdom Hearts has a more complex story than Dune. like, like Dune, you have thousands of years of lore. And in this, you have Disney characters. They portray Final Fantasy characters. Someone has to go and get Starfruit to get off an island. Like, it doesn't make sense, but it's a good game. I like Kingdom Hearts. It shouldn't make sense, but it just works. But I do think we will get Kingdom Hearts 4 stuff. Kingdom Hearts 3, like they had a trailer on the Xbox stage at E3 in what 2017 or something. And like that
Oh,
was
that feels like a lifetime ago.
yeah, it does. That's why I hate the concept of time. I feel like I'm getting
That's
ancient.
crazy.
Yeah, like that was years ago. Um, but I do think we will see that. I do think we may see some other Square Enix stuff, like some other Dragon Quest stuff. Dragon Quest 12, I'm not sure. But I do think we will see some other things like uh, was it Star Ocean? I forgot the name of it. There's a 16-bit Star Ocean game. It's like 2.5D. It looks really cool. There's no reason for that to not come to Xbox, but I do think it's actually going to be a really good week for Xbox when it comes to, the Tokyo Game Show stuff, especially for people wanting Final Fantasy. Logan, what do you think? Because like it seems like everything this week is kind of like it's almost coming to an end, and we're only a few days away. And Jez from Windows Central, he's been on the money pretty much constantly when it comes to this stuff, and it kind of makes sense for Final Fantasy 16, 7, and Pixel remasters and more to come to Xbox in general.
Yeah, I'm expecting a good show, a good to great show. Um, like you said in the past, Xbox has been pretty tepid with their hype for this show. It's been like like let's put a bracket of tiers. Like you have your E3 level hype and expectations and like crazy like this is where all the big things for this plot of time is going to happen. And then a sizable step down from that is Gamescom, and you might have some big announcements thrown in there, but it's kind of like an E3 redux but with a few new things. And then a quantum leap step down was Tokyo Game Show, where it's generally been some indies and maybe a port or two, and mainly talk about why it's such a great idea to play Xbox in Japan. And see, we got some content creators to talk about how Xbox is actually cool. Please buy an Xbox in Japan, please. And so it feels like this is going to be actually much bigger than that. Like they're hyping this up to be like a Gamescom
Yeah.
E3 ish type event. And the fact that they've gone above and beyond and out of their way to say for all Xbox fans to tune in, not just people in the Japanese or Asia regions or just fans of that stuff. So that tells me, at least with my thinking, that there will not only be the traditional indies from Japan and Asia, which are always welcome. There will be ports of things that people have been wanting from the region, which is always welcome. And there might be some new reveals for Japanese centric type content for Xbox, maybe exclusively. And there'll be some other stuff that isn't Asian centric, I think, will be thrown in there as well. Like, I haven't seen anybody else throw this out there, but like, this seems to me like it would be a good spot to drop that all your owned games that are approved by publishers are now playable on cloud, because we know how big
Oh yeah.
cloud use and mobile use is in Asia and Japan in particular. What better place than to go, hey, not only are your Game Pass titles playable on the go, but your other games you own you can play on the go with Xbox. And To me, that seems like that could be a realistic option and announcement that is not related to just a specific game for the showcase. I I'm not a betting man or a gambling man, but if I were, I would feel very confident about Final Fantasy something being there. I think 16 and Pixel remasters. I wouldn't say it's a lock. I'm not a Sith Lord. I don't deal in absolutes, but I would say it's pretty good chance. And I don't expect 7, but I do think we will get a few more Square games as well. Some other games that were missing ports for Xbox will come to the platform, and I think there'll be a few surprises that make people very happy. That would be my predictions.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a good show. And in the past, there's been some decent things announced, but just the way they're going about it. But I will say this though, the insecurities I've seen this past week, Jez Corden coming out with basically saying these games are coming. I've seen genuine excitement in the community, which I love. People are genuinely happy on Xbox that these games are finally going to come over. And you'd think people would be happy, but like the amount of replies I'm getting on Twitter, and by the way, if people aren't on Twitter, God bless you, man.
Power to you.
Yeah, power to you. Like we are already in it. Like the addiction is there. Like down to the end, right? I'm going down with the ship.
I'm going down with the ship. What
Yeah,
you and me are, with the instruments on the
yeah.
Titanic.
And and the thing is, I love Twitter, but like it could be a mess online. And by the way, I've kept all these receipts because why not? But anyway, I did a little prediction post the other day on Twitter, just rambling off a few things I thought were going to come, like Pixel Remasters in 16, and I get this reply, bookmarking this to make sure I can make fun of you when it doesn't happen. And like just the list of them goes on. It's like, oh, here's another one, and nobody will buy them on the Game Pass machine. Great for business. Another reply: keep begging Xbot. Like they are so terrified, and like they act like Sony owns these games, owns the intellectual properties, and it's like they are losing an exclusive. Like nobody's gonna come into their house and take away their video games. But they act that way, and I never saw Persona fans do this. I'm on Twitter all the time on a night. Like I interact with a lot of fan bases. Let me tell you, Persona fans never did this. Never did this. Yakuza fans, not a peep. In fact, I saw a lot of Yakuza fans were really happy that this was happening when these games were coming over. But like Final Fantasy fanboys, people that have like Cloud as their profile picture, it's they can't accept it. They can't accept that like Final Fantasy is too big of a franchise to remain on one console. Square Enix puts a lot of money into these games, and look, they don't sell that well on one platform. It makes no sense for Final Fantasy, one of the biggest IPs on the planet when it comes to video games, just to lock it to one piece of hardware because, these games don't sell on Xbox. Like, Japanese games do sell on Xbox, but one, they have to be marketed and actually put on the platform regularly. Nobody on like, I'm rambling. I talk about Crisis Core Reunion all the time and how it's an amazing game. But the amount of people that told me that they want to get it but won't buy it because we don't have the remake yet, I 100% stand behind that statement because they shouldn't have to buy that.
One
game.
of those,
honestly. Yeah, like Crisis Core, it's amazing. Like honestly, I'm putting it out there. I have to when someone asks what's my favorite Final Fantasy game, I have to actually think. I have to think: is it 10 still or is it Crisis Core? Like that's how good Crisis Core is. And like people don't want to buy it because of the remake not on the console. Like it makes perfect sense, right? And I want that game to sell well, but I can't blame people for not wanting to get into that. But like Final Fantasy fanboys, just miserable. Like they seem so unhappy, and it's sad because like I see Xbox fans wanting JRPGs on a regular basis, and they get talked down to. They get I've seen some vile things said online just by people wanting these games to come over, and it's just a video game. Like it's just a video game that people want to play on their preferred console. And and you go down these people's like feeds, and they end up port begging, Xbox games. Like people can port beg Halo on a Switch, but you're not allowed to say, "Hey, can I get Final Fantasy on an Xbox?" Like, come on, it's beyond ridiculous now, and it's been going on for years. And I think the Final Fantasy fandom, when these games do come over, they can finally shut up and cope and seethe, because it's annoying, and they've been doing this for years, right? They are possibly one of the worst sub fan bases in gaming, right? They are so annoying. Not Final Fantasy fans, the fanboys. It's terrible, and it's been going on for years. Anyway, I think Tokyo Game Show, it's going to be great. Again, depending on where you live, you may be able to watch it live. I will be posting about it live because, again, I'm not missing out on watching this live. The reaction online is going to be priceless. Anyway, we'll move on. Still have a bunch of stuff to talk about. You know what? Let's talk about Game Pass. Now, Game Pass, it turns out they've been putting $1 billion into video games and securing video games into the service. Some people have been like freaking out because you have these journalists that they don't understand the Xbox ecosystem for some reason. They don't do the research, and they just don't get it. And they make it seem like Xbox is going to lock games behind Game Pass, which hasn't happened. Apple Arcade does that, by the way, not Game Pass. And like, Xbox Game Pass is a great service. And when the service first started, I didn't subscribe. I didn't see any value in the service for me because I owned almost all of the titles. But now, to me, it's a necessary subscription service. For me, it's like Disney Plus, right? I never see myself unsubscribing from Disney Plus because I like the Fox content. They have a huge back catalogue of Fox content, which I love. And plus, I tend to rewatch Sons of Anarchy a lot. But what was I saying? I'm all over the place today. Oh yeah. I think like when it comes to Xbox Game Pass, it's a great service with a lot of value. And you look at all the games they're securing for the service, right? They've secured Persona games in the past, Yakuza games in the past, single player titles, and then this year they already announced Sniper Elite Resistance, brand new AAA Sniper Elite game, looks fantastic, comes out in Game Pass next year. Atomfall, which is basically Fallout, but set in the northeast of England during the 1920s. I'm all over that, and like a bunch of other games like Expedition 33, which is a turn-based RPG, but like it's made by a French developer, and it looks amazing. And they keep securing all these like single player content for the service, and like Xbox Game Pass isn't riddled with microtransactions, which people like to force online. Like, oh, Game Pass is all about microtransactions and battle passes. It's like 99% of the content and games in Game Pass, it's single player. Like, I don't understand like why people still have problems against Game Pass, and I guarantee all these people that do, they subscribe to Netflix, they subscribe to Disney Plus or Prime or Spotify Premium. They have no problem subscribing to services that cover every other form of media. But video games, people freak out because Xbox, they clearly put a lot of money into Game Pass. Like I say Xbox, they aren't good with messaging and they aren't really all in with marketing at the minute. However, I will say this, Game Pass, they do put a lot of money into that service. It clearly shows because of all the great games that always come to the service. Hell, next month, I should say 2 months from now, Stalker. That's going to be one of the biggest games of the year. We're getting a first-party AAA Indiana Jones game in December. Like, there's a lot of reasons for people to like Game Pass, and then you just have these journalists still that they just don't get it. Like, Logan, what's your take? Because Game Pass has been around for, 7 years, but they still act like it's a new service that could fail.
Yeah, it's so weird. Like, a lot of these people's masks have fallen off whenever it comes to anything Xbox related, in particular the whole Game Pass thing, because Like, I get it. If you were skeptical at first, or kind of wondered if it was really going to succeed or not, or didn't really like what you thought it would do to the industry or something like that at first, I get it because it was a brand new, bold idea. But like you, I didn't subscribe at first. I didn't subscribe, I think, till 2019 or 2020, I think. Like, I waited a while because I owned most of the stuff that was already in it. It's like, this doesn't affect me at all. But once they started adding things I didn't have, or things I was interested in but wanted to just try out first, and then they add the perk system and the reward system and all this other stuff, yeah, it became a no brainer. And then with all the content that's constantly flowing through, it is one of the single best, not just values in gaming, but values in entertainment. It is like a tremendous value, and it's a must have subscription to me now. Like you said, like with Disney Plus. And really, the only thing I don't like about subscriptions is the ones that make it where you cannot purchase an item that's in the subscription service. Like it's hidden only to that service. But Game Pass doesn't do that. Xbox, spoiler alert, they want your money. They don't care how they get it. If they sell you the game, awesome. If you subscribe to Game Pass, super duper. That's nice. They just want people involved in the Xbox ecosystem and universe. And to me, that's the best way to do things. Like, make it where you have the option. Like, for example, like everybody knows I'm a big horror movie and game junkie. One of the best horror movies I've ever seen is called The Ritual. It's on Netflix. I think, I can't remember if it's Norwegian. It's a European horror film about these group of friends that go backpacking in Europe, and they encounter this crazy cult, this monster deity thing, and it's just an absolute insane trip, and one of the best horror films I've ever seen, and one of the best, horror monster creatures I've ever seen designed. Period. It's brilliant, but it's only on Netflix, and except for like, there's a few regions in the world that had a DVD copy, I think, that was sold. But other than that, like, you can't buy it on Blu-ray. You can't buy it on 4K. You can't even buy it digitally. It's just on Netflix, and that's it. It's hidden away, locked. And like even Disney Plus now is finally making it to where you can buy, the Mandalorian seasons or WandaVision or whatever. So as long as they make it where I can purchase the content, I'm totally cool in game for subscription services. And the fact that people continue to run with dumb old narratives is exposing their bias or ignorance or both. And especially, I'd call attention to, like, next time y'all are on online and you start seeing articles like these, keep tabs on who is writing these pieces and stuff, and see if there's a history of this pattern of doubt and questioning whenever it comes to certain platforms or the other. Because generally there seems to be a trend there. Just say.
Yeah, some of the same few bad apples always pops out with this stuff, and it gets old quick. But if people pay attention to them, like if you mute all these people that come out with this stuff, and it's the same people over and over again, you'd be surprised at like how much of that stuff you can filter out your feed. But yeah, people just need to be a bit more wary of it. And like Game Pass is an easy target, not because it's a bad service, it's because Xbox, they tend to just get a lot of hate. They have done for years, and it's kind of funny. Like Xbox has been in the game for what, almost 25 years at this point. It's getting there anyway, and these still people in the industry just don't like Microsoft being in the console business. They never have, never will. There's some pretty like well-known people, which I will not mention their names. They've said publicly online they just don't like Microsoft because of Xbox. They just don't. They don't like the fact that Xbox got into the game, and like they are completely open about it. And these people get paid to talk about video games and paid to be unbiased, where they clearly aren't. You know, like PlayStation, they've only had one console generation more than Microsoft. Microsoft, they actually do things with their back catalog. They give people free upgrades. You have access to your games on discs. Like I can put KOTOR in my Xbox Series X and it works, right? That's legacy. I would love if people could put in an original PlayStation disc in their PlayStation 5 and be able to play those games, but like Sony does not care. Like you get nickel and
I would
dimed.
buy a PS5 Pro if they did that.
Yeah, if they said, hey, PlayStation 5 Pro, you can put in the discs from all of your previous generations, that would sell me on a console. But like, just they get nickel and dime constantly. You have to pay for cloud saves, and you get charged for upgrades. And sometimes, yeah, there's a $10 fee, but sometimes it's a $70 game listed as a remaster. Like it nickel and dimes, unlike anyone else. People say Nintendo nickel and dimes people. In Nintendo games, they just stay full price forever for some reason. But like Sony, they just come out and like really upcharge people. Like look at this console, right? Bit of a tangent. The Pro, it's an unnecessary console in a time where we don't need mid-gen refresh consoles this time around. And the console's £700 in the UK, right? That's $914 without a disc drive and a stand. That's a joke. That's a literal.
Yeah, it's all.
Yeah, it's crazy. Like even saying it out loud, like $914, and you don't get a stand.
Highway robbery, man.
Yeah, that's a premium console, a pro console, and it doesn't have a stand or a disc drive. People's base consoles they got in 2020 technically have more features. Like it's crazy. It's a mess, man. The whole industry's a mess. You don't know who to trust. Anyway, speaking of all that stuff, Logan, the 25th anniversary for Xbox is already been planned. What the hell is going on? Because it seems like it's a while off, but they may have big plans.
Yeah, it feels insane. We were talking about 2025 and kind of being squeamish about it, not only being a few months away, but in turn, 2026 is just over a year away, and that will be the 25th anniversary for Xbox and Halo. And apparently, they are already making massive and significant plans for the anniversary, they said. And for Xbox as a whole, the brand, they mentioned all these franchises, including a name drop of StarCraft again, which wink wink nudge nudge seems like a good um indication that they don't plan on that franchise being on ice forever. It sounds like they intend to do something with it. They acknowledge its existence as one of their key franchises and brands. So it's hard to believe that we are close to being 5 years removed from when they did the 20th anniversary and we got that last BC batch and the controllers and all that other stuff. Time flies. But yeah, it sounds like they are having something very big planned for the 2026 for the 25th anniversary, particularly Halo related and some other stuff, and for the brand of Xbox as a whole. And with the rumors and the buzz and reports about next gen consoles eventually starting in 2026, you put two and two together and it makes sense. I think there's fire there. And would that be a great time to announce the new consoles, reveal them, reveal a Halo Infinite 2 or Halo 7 or whatever you want to call Halo at this point? Yeah, and maybe some other remasters or remakes from legacy titles or sequels to long dormant franchises or whatever. It seems like there's going to be something major very in 2026.
Yeah, it kind of lines up with what else has been going around, and again from Windows Central, and I 100% believe this. In fact, we kind of predicted this ourselves. That next generation starts in 2026 for Microsoft. That all that stuff leaked in the FTC documents, but also their plan for next generation isn't an Xbox Series X and S successor. They're gonna do an Xbox Series X successor, so your main powerful console, and a handheld console. The handheld console just isn't going away, but this kind of makes more sense because the Series S. Look, the Series S is a fantastic console. It's powerful. It's a tiny little beast, and like the fact that you can play Call of Duty on that console at 120 frames per second, right? In fact, that console has more 120 frames per second games than the PlayStation 5. It sounds crazy, but it's true. And like it's a powerful little console, but there have been some people that have complained about the amount of RAM in the little console, right? Honestly, I think if the S had more RAM, we wouldn't hear about some developers complain about the S, because that's essentially the S's big problem. It's RAM. It has 10 gigs of RAM, not 12 or 16, which I think next gen they'll have 16 minimum. So like Xbox next generation, I think they're looking at the handheld market, thinking like the handheld market's been popping up for a few years. The Steam Deck's huge. Like that did a lot for the PC, portable market, because beforehand, the only way to play PC games on the go were via an expensive gaming laptop, and those laptops are pretty expensive. But Steam Decks, you can get one. I think they're on sale at the minute. You can get one for under like $300, which is crazy. The ROG Ally is huge. There's a bunch of streaming handhelds. There's the LG Go or something like that, which basically looks like a Switch. And like they've really been popping off. Phil Spencer talks about how the handheld market looks really like intriguing. He talks about handhelds all the time. So like it kind of makes sense if you think about it, that maybe they just don't do the cheap console next time. You're gonna have this handheld which you can obviously dock, because you can dock a Steam Deck if you want. I 100% believe that. So I think their 25th anniversary thing, they are going to celebrate with the launch of next generation, and it being a Series X successor and the portable console. I will say this, and I've said this on Twitter before. Now I think I've mentioned this in one of my videos on my channel. I honestly think they should name the next Xbox Xbox 6. End the stupid naming convention, because every time Xbox comes out with a new console and they name it something, people get quote unquote confused. And it's like, just put a 6 on the end, right? People will understand. We never got a Windows 9 that was public. We never even got an iPhone 9. Nobody complained. In fact, nobody batted an eye. Right? Nobody cared. So if they just come out, in my opinion, they have to come out with an Xbox 6, which is your home console, and the Xbox Go, which is the handheld. Or whatever, Xbox Portable. Straight to the point. I think that's going to be their plan. Logan, what's your take? Because it really does look like they are going the two different pieces of hardware route next generation, but one being a home console and one being a handheld.
Yeah, I agree. I think we were right on the money that they are going back to the 360 era strategy of strike first and strike fast and strike hard, like a blitzkrieg. Like they're just gonna go out there and try to just jumpstart the market, get a head start on next gen with a more powerful console, and they'll have the PS5 Pro specs. They'll know what they're competing against, and they'll beat that. And instead of having the value entry console like the S, they'll have the handheld, which will. I'm not sure how much it'll cost, but it'll be probably less than the Series X successor. And so having where I think a lot of people who are hardcore enthusiasts like yourself or myself would probably be seriously interested in both having the portable one and the super powerful one. Or if you're, somebody who just go plays on the go mainly, then the handheld one is directly for you. Or if you don't play on the go and have no interest in that, then the major powerful one is the one for you. Or, if you just don't care and you want the cheapest option, then pick that one. But I'm super excited that they're going with this route that it sounds like, and I'm super excited to see what they actually look like, the designs and the specs, and how they manage backwards compatibility and some other stuff. Like, we know they're going to be backwards compatible. We know that up front. They've said so. They've made teams specifically in place to make sure these things will run our libraries going forward. So no doubts about that, but I'm curious how they do it. And the pricing will obviously be big. But I think 2026 is when they do it. I hope that they announce a new Halo. That would be awesome at the show as well. And, like I said, bring back some older stuff. And yeah, the 25th anniversary. It's hard to believe it's that soon.
Yeah, 25 years on Xbox. That's kind of crazy at that point. But I mean, who knows what the industry is going to be like by then? Like, with all the handhelds popping off, like, apparently Sony's looking into doing 2 SoCs next generation. That's system on chip, much like what Xbox does now. So, like, I think next gen is going to be pretty wild because Sony, they're going to be launching their next gen consoles possibly 2 years after Microsoft, which is kind of unheard of in like the past few decades. Like, it's crazy, really. And like you said, we all saw what happened last generation where Xbox had a whole year before the Wii and before the PlayStation 3. The PlayStation 3 had a bunch of its own issues with it being a really expensive Blu-ray player, and the Nintendo Wii kind of just sold to everyone's grandmother and their cash because everyone needed one. I think the next few years, like, are going to be some of the most interesting in gaming. So while I do talk about, like, I do think there's going to be a crash, and I complain about the price of video games and all this stuff. Honestly, if things kind of calm down a bit, if developers we're talking about Space Marine before, that is back to basics. It's a 360 game, right? You don't need these bloated budgets. Make good games. Just make them fun. And, like, people don't really care. Like, people just want good games. Like, the millions of people that buy consoles, they just want to play something that's good, right? They don't pay attention to industry stuff. They don't know any of these things, right? So, like, all these developers have to do is just make good games, price them fairly, and optimize them. And you have no, I've ranted about this before, but you have no idea how much I am against mid-gen refreshes now. Like, the fact that the PlayStation 5 Pro exists, like, it annoys me because we've spent 4 years wanting more games to come out. Everything got delayed for years, and more hardware comes out. It's crazy. Console generations used to be about 5 years long, 4 or 5 years, and the 360 generation was super long. And over that generation, we got slim consoles that cost less, right? With bigger hard drives, and games looked better, and they were better optimized. The graphics got better throughout the generation, and we didn't have to worry about, like, oh, is this game going to be this resolution on that piece of hardware or that frame rate? Like, no, you just bought the bloody console and played the game. And, like, when the Xbox One and PlayStation 4 came out, this weird power shift happened where I never really saw people talk about power when the 360 or PS3 were out. Like, people just talked about the games, and, like, that shift to talking about resolution was all over the place. And Microsoft fought back with the whole Xbox One X, because that was a 4K console, and that was actually needed at the time. But, like, that console generation we had, the Xbox One and PlayStation 4, those consoles were severely underbaked and underpowered. Like, those consoles we got then, we should have gotten about 2010, right? I 100% believe this. Like, Anyway, I've been rambling. I think it's going to be an interesting few years.
Oh, you want to hear something?
Yeah, yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, no, continue.
I was like, oh, you want to hear something funny? Xbox actually clapped back a little bit at PlayStation just a second ago and made a funny post. They said, if you look closely, you'll notice these games are coming to Xbox, and they showed all these titles from the PlayStation event on a infograph and photo, and basically clowning the show and saying, "Hey, don't worry, most of that getting those games are coming to Xbox as well." They forgot to include the Lunar series
Yeah.
for some reason, but hopefully they redo the picture and add it. But I thought that was funny and a little jab.
That is kind of weird because Xbox doesn't do that often now. Like they used to poke fun all the time, and like I think that's what we need to see Xbox do more of: be more competitive, be like how they used to be. Like we talk about the 360 generation all the time and how good it was, but like that was the most competitive generation we've ever seen in gaming, ever. Because at the end of the generation, the Wii sold over 100 million units. The Xbox 360 sold about 90 million. The PlayStation 3, even though they got ahead in the end with like 93 million consoles or something, like Xbox had mindshare, right? Hell, when it came to multi-platform games, Xbox had the severe market share. So like but that generation, everyone won. Xbox was being really competitive, so PlayStation had to make better games, and they were coming out with a wide variety of games that generation. The Nintendo Wii was selling like hotcakes because it was accessible to everyone, regardless of age, and like that was a very, I don't know, peaceful generation. We didn't have drama in gaming all the time. People weren't arguing about crap that didn't matter, and it's like it was very focused. The competitiveness between the companies was existent. They were actually trying, and now I just feel like it's very one sided. And you have journalists like 90% of the game news you see, like by IGN or GameSpot or whatever, like it's all rage bait and stuff. Like Logan, can you remember like what news was like back during the seventh generation? It was like finding out about new features or what game's getting this new map pack or expansion. But like, can you remember any drama like what we get now back then?
No, like I know it makes it sound like old men on a porch, but it back then, back in our day, news was news, or rumors were, like, oh, this project may happen, or rumored that they might be bringing this franchise back, or doing this or that, or if there was bad news, it was unfortunately this project has been canceled, or the studio has been shut down, like a Lionhead, or whatever, or something like that. And then most of the news was like, wow, Nintendo has revealed they're having this event. Or Xbox has debuted the 360. Or PlayStation has unveiled the Move controller. Or it was all like relevant, newsworthy stuff that was either about the products, about the games, the systems, or you know, tied to how they're going forward, not BS about the creative director at a studio had the audacity to say that games should be fun. And this is controversial, and we're going to rage bait the ever living blank out of this to try to get engagement and pay rent. And or this character customization thing is offers this or that, or this character culturally represents this which goes against that but ties back to this. It was simply like, this studio is making this game inspired by this, or this has been canceled, this has been greenlit, we're hoping to see this, we're hoping to see that. Here's a cool interview with some devs behind the scenes, or this studio head has resigned and stepped down, and this new person is taking their place. It was actual news. Like Nintendo Power, Game Informer, rest in peace to both of them. Eurogamer when it was good. All this other stuff was actual news and worthy and good stuff. Now there's just so much junk out there. It just it's ridiculous. It's exhausting, man.
Yeah, it's a shame, really. But it's been a good show. Everyone in chat has been awesome, aside from what, maybe one fanboy. I can't really see the post anymore. But everyone in chat's been amazing. Now, this show has been slightly shorter than usual, so about an hour and 45 minutes. We did kind of have to start late because of the whole state of play thing. We'll be back for another episode of All Things Xbox podcast at the usual time at 6 p.m. Eastern next week. Depending on what happens on the 26th, I do have a video planned to go live between now and Sunday. So it may or may not be Final Fantasy related, depending on what happens. Anyway, that's been fun making these videos. The link to my last video is in the description down below, which is the 20 biggest games coming to Xbox this September. I have an October related video coming out soon, which I think people will like, because October is stacked beyond belief. Like, ton of RPGs, shooters, racing games, literally everything you can imagine, even fighting games. Logan, it's been great talking to you once again. Again, everyone chat's been great. We are out, everybody. Peace and have a good day.